Go, just getting the recording working. So I hope you are feeling well on this lovely sunny morning. I have a lovely view out of my window today. And we're on the countdown to an Easter break, which is lovely. And if you're feeling anything like me, then you're probably feeling ready just to take a little bit of time off and just calm and restore a little. It's been a busy first quarter. And so this morning we're talking about perfectionism. And I know this is something I've wrestled with for most of my life, really, and how this can lead into procrastination and how at times it can really sabotage our life. It can sabotage our business and our happiness. And it can often come from a place of feeling not good enough or not ready yet. So how do you know if this is an issue for you? And I think one of the things to notice would be, do you have a lot of things that you've started but not finished? Have you got lots on your to-do list? Maybe you've had ideas but you've not got round to doing it yet. You haven't actually put it in place. So maybe you've thought about a retreat you'd like to run, or a workshop, or maybe some resources for your students, or a new website, or that you'd like to start a blog. And you've had these ideas and you're quite excited about it. And maybe you've started, but then it's not actually finished and gone public yet. And I think that can be one of the things that is a little bit of a giveaway if these are things that other people might be seeing. So whether it's you teaching or whether it's you publishing something, often what can be in the way of that is this idea that it's not finished, it's not good enough yet, I just need to tweak it a bit more, I don't want other people seeing it yet because it's not good enough. And this can happen on any level. And I know for me, there was a lot around social media for that I found it difficult to post regularly because I was being so perfectionist about what I was going to post, and it had to be amazing. And it stopped me from actually posting anything, or being so infrequent that it didn't really work as a strategy. And yeah, realizing that there was so much perfectionism in there that was actually sabotaging my own marketing, which when you take it out of context sounds ridiculous. But I think there's a lot of us who may tend towards that, that there is a fear of being seen, of being judged, and feeling that we're perhaps not good enough. And so these are things that then end up really sabotaging our life and our happiness, this sense that things aren't good enough yet, or that we're not good enough yet. So yeah, if you're noticing that you have ideas, that you've started projects, and then they run out of steam, or they're sort of sat there 80% done, and you think, oh yeah, I just need to go back and tweak a few things, and it's not quite ready yet. I just need to research a few things before, and maybe do some referencing before I can publish this blog post. Or maybe it's something like sending regular newsletters, and I know people often struggle with that. And maybe the feeling is, oh, well, I don't know what to say, or people won't find it very interesting, or they're going to be annoyed if I send stuff. Um, there are all these kind of thoughts and beliefs that come in that stop us doing things. And underneath it all, it can be this perfectionism. And often underneath that is a sense of being not good enough on some level. And so this is something that I think is a really important thing to be conscious of, because often we can have very logical excuses for why things aren't happening and not putting it down to maybe some of those deeper levels. So it might be that there's technical reasons or problems that you haven't overcome yet, that you don't have enough time, that you're waiting on somebody else. And to an extent, those things are real, but also they're quite convenient. It gets us off the hook. It's like, oh, phew, there's a technical problem. So now I don't have to publish that thing, and I don't have to put myself out there and put myself up for being judged. I think a lot of the time that is a huge fear, and a very natural one, that we're worried what other people will think. Um, and it ties in a bit to the talk last week about not everyone's going to love your classes and your stuff. And that's completely fine. And that's why we need to be really grounded in our own vision and our own self-worth, and clarity about what it is that we offer and what it is that we don't. And we will attract the people who need what we're offering. We can't be all things to all people. We can't please everybody. And again, sometimes this desire to please everybody, it comes from that place of being not good enough. Because if somebody criticizes us or doesn't like the class or finds something lacking for them, then we really internalize that and think, oh God, that shows that I'm not a good enough teacher, or my class wasn't good enough, and I had somebody who wasn't 100% happy. All of these things come into that, and that can drive perfectionism. So this idea that if we prepare enough and work hard enough, and do all the extra reading and research and endless training and endless tweaking of our lesson plans, if we're perfect enough, we'll be critic proof. No one will be able to say a single negative thing, and we'll be okay. And that's a really natural thing to have. Nobody likes being criticized. It's not easy. But I think when we have that grounding in our own self-worth and our own self-belief, of knowing that we are good enough, but we're not necessarily for everyone. We can't be best friends with everybody. As much as I am a people person, I know the people that I click with easily, and the ones who I know are probably not going to be my friend, because we're not on the same wavelength. There's not enough in common. We don't have the same goals or ethics or beliefs, and there's nothing wrong with that other person. It's just they're not my person. And that comes back the other way around. I'm not going to be everybody's person either. There are some people who are not going to like the style of yoga I teach, and not going to agree with my point of view, who don't have the same interest. So the things that I'm really passionate about, that I want to change in the world, other people don't care about. It doesn't matter to them. And so they're not going to follow me on social media because it's not their thing. And so this is the thing that we need to start getting over and building up a bit of resilience, is around being good enough. And then when we're more grounded in that, then that becomes sort of our resilience and our, you know, our armor for dealing with people who are not going to agree or don't like what we put out there. Or, you know, this is where sometimes there's a fear of success, because the more successful we are, the more our profile rises and the more people are going to be aware of us, you know. And this can be where we self-sabotage. So for example, one part of us might want to have a really successful social media presence. We might dream of having loads of followers, and from that we can, you know, perhaps fill a retreat, for example, or fill our classes and think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if? And then there's another part of us that might say, yeah, but then everyone will notice everything that you do, you know. And so part of us wants that, and then the other part of us might think, yeah, but what if we've got thousands of people reading our social media posts? What if I get negative comments? What if I make a mistake and everybody sees it? It will be awful and mortifying. And so that part of us then looks for excuses to not do things and finds like, well, we haven't quite got enough time to do that, so maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Or, yeah, that's a great idea, but it's not quite ready yet. It's not perfect enough yet. You know, oh, we don't quite have enough time, or maybe we need some help. Maybe we could do this even better. So let's just put that on the back burner until we can do version 2 or version 3 and keep tweaking and improving, and never actually putting it out in the world, because there's this fear of being seen and of being judged and being found out, you know, that imposter syndrome that we all have to some degree. It's like, well, if I put this stuff out there and lots of people see it, if I become successful and visible, everyone's going to know that actually I'm not good enough. You know, these are some of the deeper things that go on. And quite often they're unconscious. Like we're not consciously thinking that, because if we were, possibly we'd be more aware of it and might be more able to deal with it. Often these are feelings that are underneath, rather than very clear conscious thoughts. And so we believe the excuses. We believe the not enough time, just needs a bit of tweaking. I haven't found the right person to do this thing for me yet. Like, oh, I haven't found the right person to build my website, so therefore I can't have a website. Well, actually you can. You could probably pull together a basic one-page thing yourself, but then there's all these reasons that come up about why that's not good enough. And really, what we need to come back to is, I suppose, our deeper beliefs. So I would invite you to take some time, you know, almost like a meditation, breathe into it and get some clarity about what is. See, often we judge ourselves much harder than other people. So if you have an image of, you know, what is a good enough teacher, what would a teacher need to be like for you to think, oh yeah, I enjoyed that class, they're a good teacher. What are the hallmarks of that? And maybe make a list and say, what are the qualities that a good teacher has? And then look at how many of them you have. And I think you probably would have most of those. And then I would invite you to fantasize about the world's most perfect, ideal yoga teacher and what qualities they would have, and then look around to see, does anybody fulfill that criteria? And if you think they do, then I would make this suggestion that possibly that's your projection and you might be idealizing somebody, and that there's a lot more to them than you are aware of, and that it's not true. Because nobody is of that level of perfect, and you don't have to be that level of perfect to put yourself out in the world, and invite people to work with you. You know, if you are a trained yoga teacher and you're qualified and you're insured, you're good enough to teach. And of course, there's different styles and different levels, but there are people out there who need you. And it's almost your duty to let them know that you're there. So, you know, do the blog posts, do your marketing, put yourself out there, and people don't care how perfect your branding is, or how perfect your messaging is, or how perfect your photographs are. Because you probably don't judge other people to that degree either. Would you not book on somebody's retreat because their website wasn't fancy enough or their photos weren't professional enough? Would that stop you from booking with a teacher? I don't think it would. You'd probably maybe want to find out their background, like what they're trained in, what style they do. Does that resonate with you? You know, practical things like days and times. Does that fit your schedule? And, you know, are they somebody that you could click with? And at the very least, you might want to book one class and try it out. You know, people don't not book with you or not buy with you because they think your blog post isn't, you know, literary enough or academic enough. It's just they'll find it useful or they won't. And it's very unlikely that you're going to get negative comments. And even if you do, you know, obviously on social media, sometimes things can spark a controversial debate about things. But even if that does happen, it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It's just sometimes people don't have the same opinion. And sometimes there are people who just work out their issues online. You know, they're working out their own insecurities, and it's much more a reflection on the person who posts a negative comment than the original post. You know, obviously we need to be mindful about being deliberately provocative and controversial. You know, unless you want to attract that kind of interaction with people. And I know some people do that because it gets a lot of attention on their social media. But if that's not what you're looking for, just be out there sharing your message. Hi, this is me. These are my offerings. This is where you can find me. By the way, here's a useful yoga practice, or here's a book that I like. Did you know that I'm running a workshop? Like, nothing around that's controversial. And there's nothing around there to necessarily invite judgment. People will decide whether it's the right thing for them or not. And that's no reflection on what we're actually offering. So, you know, look at what might be stopping you from all these unfinished tasks, plans, and projects that you've half started and not finished, or you've had an idea and you haven't got round to doing it. Now, the other side of this, is also around planning your time and having deadlines and structuring as well. So there is a thing called Parkinson's law, which says that work will expand to fill the time allocated to it. So whatever time you give to a project, you will generally take that long. So for example, if I gave myself a whole day to do a newsletter, probably would take me a whole day to do it. If I give myself, say, 2 hours, I'll get it done in 2 hours because there's a deadline. It's like, right, I need to get it done. And so these can be really useful ways of getting things done, and it's grounded in the good enough. So, and this was the thing that would stop me a lot, is I would get 80% of the way, like it would be almost done, but I would feel like it wasn't good enough. And it would end up taking so long that I'd kind of missed my own deadline. And then what I was writing was no longer relevant because the time had passed. And actually, good enough is good enough. There are things that don't need to be so perfect, and we can look at what's appropriate for what we're offering. So things like our marketing, the writing doesn't have to be the level of an academic book that we want. Like if we wanted to write a yoga textbook, of course that takes time and you need rigor and standards in that, but a newsletter is not a textbook. Like it doesn't have to be to that standard. Things like blog posts, social media, people skim read them. They're not saving it to put on their bookshelf to read and reread and go into lots of depth. So it's not worth the agony and the endless time over it. So I think keeping things simple and giving yourself realistic deadlines and times to get things done will help you get through this. And I think the way to get over that fear that comes around perfectionism is to just do it and take a deep breath and hit send. And then you realize that the world doesn't cave in, that you don't get lots of replies saying your newsletter was not professional enough, and it didn't have enough content, and I didn't get sufficient value. Or people don't do that. If there's something in the title and they go, oh yeah, that's interesting, and they'll read it, and if they kind of go, oh yeah, no, it doesn't speak to me, they'll just ignore it. It's fine. And of course you can keep tweaking over time, but in order to improve what you're offering, whether we're talking about classes, whether we're talking about your marketing, all of these things, we only really can improve through feedback. And you only get feedback if you've actually put it out there for people to give feedback on. So it's a fruitless task anyway, trying to get something perfect before you offer it. You need to get it good enough to offer. So, obviously we think through enough. We want to be professional. We want to be prepared. But it's only through feedback that people tell you what they loved, what needs improving, what you could leave out. And we're always in progress. And this is always a co-creation. And if you think of everything that you do for your students, your followers, your clients as being a co-creative process, you can get over that blockage of it has to be perfect before I offer it. It doesn't. It needs to be good enough. and you can engage people in that process of development. And actually, when we do that, then people are much more invested in it as well. This idea that you're listening to your students. And for example, if you had the idea of running, say, a little weekend retreat somewhere, rather than trying to make it absolutely perfect and then offering it, why not involve all your students and ask them, what would you like? Let me go and start the process and come back to you. What do you think of this venue? Or what kind of price range would work for you? Or what kind of structure would you be interested in? And of course, it's not to let people pull you all over the place. Like, you still need to be the captain of the ship steering it, and it needs to be aligned with your goals and your vision. But inviting people to contribute as well means that they're much more likely to buy into the process. They're much less likely to criticize anyway if they've been the ones making the suggestions. And so we can constantly evolve. And I think that's the thing to really take away from this, is to really work on the mantra, whatever wording works for you, around you're good enough already. And you're a good enough teacher, you have good enough classes, your marketing is good enough. All you need to do really with your marketing is, on the most basic level, is to say, hello, I'm here. These are my classes. These are the days and times. This is what it costs. Here is where you can book. You know, that's it to get started. And then you can evolve from there. And I think we just need to simplify and take some of the fear out of it and allow ourselves to be forever a work in progress. You know, it's never finished. And I think that's the myth and the trap of perfectionism, is there is an idea that at some point something is complete and therefore perfect. So if it's not, so we have this idea that if it's not perfect, it can't be finished. And so if we have the idea that something, that we have to achieve perfection, then we have to get to a point where we somehow know everything, and that can't ever be the case. And so we need to let go of the idea of anything being perfect, as in there is no further improvement possible, because that's just, it's not reality. And everything keeps changing. I mean, life force is energy, is movement, is flow, is change. This, as soon as we have something locked in stone and is stagnant, that is more like death. So in order to be this vibrant, flowing, responsive, developing, growing person, teacher, then everything that we offer is also that. And when we allow ourselves to say, well, this is it so far, this is good enough, and this is good for right now, and next time I might tweak it, I might change it. And it's definitely been the case with my trainings and with my course in particular. Every single time I run it, I have another idea. It's like, oh, maybe next time it would be really good to include this. And that's why from the first time that I ran it, it was a 6-week course. It's now a 10-week course, because I keep thinking of things to improve it and develop it. And a lot of that has come from doing the course. And as I go along, I get more ideas. And as I go along, I get feedback from people who'd say, oh, I loved this. Could we have more of it? Or it would be great if this. And and I expect it to continue developing. You know, its current format is not what I'm going to be teaching exactly as it is in 10 years' time, because things change, information changes, it will always be updated. And so nothing is set in stone. And just because something can be improved and developed doesn't mean that it's not also perfect for right now, you know, that it's good enough for right now. And you are good enough right now. So go back and look at those unfinished things that you have, those things that you feel stuck on, and see what things you can actually say, get done in the next month. Give yourself a deadline and say, right, I'm going to choose one or two things, prioritize those. Don't try to do everything all at once because you won't finish anything. But choose one thing or two things, give yourself deadlines, and just do it. And it will be fine. It will work and you can do it. So I hope that gives you a little bit of inspiration and some positivity to take away for the Easter break. And I will see you back here next time, and wishing you a very lovely, restful, sunny Easter weekend. Take care.